Season 4, Episode 9 of CBB Review Courtside. If you haven't heard from us in a little bit, you're not kidding yourself. You haven't. We haven't been on here in a couple of months on this episode, and that's because, we like to take a little bit of a break during the season, but we're going toward March Madness now. It's kind of in that final stretch of the regular season, under a month until selection Sunday. And today with me, I have Tom Moser, the perfect person to have on this podcast, because if you haven't been watching college basketball lately, the Mountain West is completely taking over. Here at CBB Review, Tom, we call it the Power 7. It's no longer the Power 6 anymore. It is the Power 7. How does that feel for someone like you who covers the Mountain West?
Yeah, well, Matt, thanks for having me. So I have some followers. We actually kind of coined it. We coined it a high major, right? So it's not a mid-major. I think they've risen above mid-major. And I think the way you would define like a Power 6 is the resources that you put into your program, whether it's the salaries for the coaches or the whatever else, your weight room and all your stuff like that. And the fact is that the programs in the Mountain West mostly cannot match what the Power 6 schools do. But certainly their play on the court rivals, if not beats, a couple of those conferences this year. Hopefully the results will translate into March in a couple of weeks. We'll see. But certainly, like you said, yeah, there's no nobody will dispute that in the Mountain West territory that they're a power league right now.
Yeah, and of course, the Mountain West will be a multi-bid league. But coming into this season, Tom, did you even think that it would be the way that it is right now? I'm sure that you were confident that the Mountain West was going to be a good conference, but has this just surpassed your wildest expectations?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, for one thing, the last 2 years, 4 bids, and that's pretty much like you're happy with that, right? That's good. I mean, because that what it means is for a couple years before that, it was a 2 or 3 bid league. So, if you would have told the coaches and media and fans around the league before the season that we're going to get 4 bids, and I think most people would have said that's great. And nobody had Utah State pegged where they are. Okay, so you can throw them out, and then the other 5 teams that are fighting for bids, I think most would have just guessed, look, we got 5 teams. Those 5 will fight it out for 4 bids, and hopefully we get 4 bids. And then as the season went on, I mean, the fact is, and I should knock on wood somewhere in here, but they've avoided bad losses, and that's what has kept them in the position that they're in. And look, I hope it went from yeah, we'll get 4 to we got a shot at 5 to now it's yeah, we really should get 5 and there's a shot at 6. So we'll see how the last couple weeks play out, but it's certainly a good time right now to be a fan of those top teams in the conference.
Again, if you guys don't know Tom Moser, Top of the Mountain West podcast is his way of spreading the Mountain West information. You said it kind of there. It could be a 4-bid league, whatever, but here's my first question for you, and I wanted to debate list it a little bit maybe, is how many bids can the Mountain West get at the top? Obviously, it could be a stretch to get all 6 in, but there are 6 teams primed to potentially get at-large bids.
Yeah, well, if you follow the bracketologists that really kind of dig into this on social media, right? Twitter, X, whatever you're calling it, wherever, they all right now have all 6 of them in. And that's because a lot of the other conferences, whether it's Big Ten or ACC or whoever it is, these teams are dropping games, and the teams in the Mountain West, they're only kind of dropping games to each other, and they're all good teams, right? So I have this, maybe it's just kind of I don't want to get too optimistic about things. I have a feeling that something's going to happen in the last couple of weeks and we might lose a bid. I think it's going to be really hard at this point for us to lose 2 bids. I think a lot of things would have to happen. I think we're in a good place to get 5 bids. I'm going to say 5 right now, and I'll be thrilled if it ends up with 6. But I think we're in a pretty good position for 5.
Yeah, I feel the same way as you do there. Obviously, a couple teams seem more locks than others, but some teams have more work to do. Would you agree that San Diego State is a lock, and do you think that there are other teams that are locks at this point?
I think San Diego State seems like they're a lock. I think Utah State, after beating San Diego State last night, I think the only way that that they don't get in is by pretty much losing out. And they have the thing about the conference this year is that the 3 teams at the bottom, Fresno State, Air Force, and San Jose State, they're pretty bad. They're not putting up much resistance. Like it's last year the league was more balanced because San Jose State was really good. They were a CBI team, right? Air Force had like 5 or 6 wins. They were competitive. This year, those three teams are bad. I hate to say it. Like, let's call it what it is. They're bad. And Utah State has all three of them remaining. So like it would, if they would lose all three of those, they're not going to get in because those are going to be 3 quad 4 losses, right? Now, I mean, the chances of that happening are about the same as me and you hitting the lottery on successive weeks. Okay. But, until they go out there and win the games, they're not locked in. I think Colorado State is in a really good position, and New Mexico in about 20 minutes, we'll have them coming up here against Colorado State. If they can win that game in the pit, which they're favored to do, I think they're in a pretty good spot. So those 4 are in pretty good shape. And then, of course, Boise State and Nevada still have some work to do, is what it looks like.
Well, that's a perfect lead into this next question because Boise State and Nevada both have a little bit of harder paths. Which one would you say has the hardest path to march? Because to me, it's a little bit on the contrary. Nevada's got more wins. They've got a pretty good non-conference win in TCU. And Boise State, though, had a lot of good non-conference wins, but they've also had some more losses.
Well, that's the thing. So Boise scheduled really hard, really difficult in a non-con, which was, good forward thinking by Leon Rice. He knew he had a good squad. He wanted to challenge himself. They played like an incredible amount of quad 1 games. Now they didn't happen to win a lot of those, but you're talking teams like, no Kentuckys and Dukes, but Washington State probably going to be a tournament team. Clemson's going to be a tournament team. Virginia Tech probably not, and Butler on the bubble. So those were their non-con losses. They have some good non-con wins. They beat St. Mary's, who is on fire all of a sudden, right? And they've done well in the conference. So I think, despite the fact that Nevada, actually Boise won at Nevada, but despite the fact that Nevada has some better wins, they have more quad 1 wins than Boise State has. I think Boise State's probably in a better position. They play Nevada at home yet, so that will be they're favored to win that game at home. Nevada has a couple iffy losses, including a loss at Wyoming. They lost to Drake on a neutral. Drake's decent, but those are probably losses worse than any loss that Boise State has. So I think it's probably Nevada, despite their high-end wins. They need to win another game, whether it's and they have some tough games. They have to go to Colorado State yet, so they're not out of the woods. They're going to need to win another game or two, which is they're capable of doing because they're a very good squad.
Yeah, 100%. And I mean, you can't even discount the Mountain West tournament at this point either. I mean, I know that it's that age-old debate. Does the conference tournament really matter for some teams? I would argue in the Mountain West, it's going to be as big of a deal as it has been in the past because there are going to be more opportunities to improve that resume like never before. And to be honest with you, I bet the committee's looking at this year like, what are we going to do with the Mountain West? Like, how do we grade this conference? To me, you have to grade it like the other power conferences.
Absolutely, because so with the exception of whoever gets the 1 seed, Utah State is heavily favored to do that right now after the win last night, and they'll get an easier, not easy, but easier quarterfinal game against either Wyoming or Fresno likely. But if anybody else aside from Utah State would win the conference tournament, any seed 2 through 7, they're going to have to win like 3 quad 1 games basically. So you could see yourself moving up a full seed line or 2 by winning 3 games in 3 days if you're the 3 seed and you go through Nevada and then you go through San Diego State and then you go through Utah State. If somebody from that like wins those 3 games in 3 days, like that's half of the quad 1 wins that a good team has over the course of a season in 1 week, in 1 weekend. So yeah, absolutely, that the committee better pay attention to that weekend.
It will be must-watch basketball. I cannot wait. Like, I always live for the Big East tournament. I'm a Big East guy, but the Mountain West is going to be right there this year. No argument that there will be some amount of Mountain West teams in the NCAA tournament. However many, we won't know until Selection Sunday. But once we get there, who are you confident in that can make a run in the big dance? Is it San Diego State again? Is it Colorado State with Isaiah Stevens? Like a second weekend team out of this conference.
So I'm probably going to go off the grid here with a team we haven't really talked about yet. I think it's probably New Mexico. They have a very high ceiling because of their guard play. Guards win in March, right? And they have a very high ceiling guards with Jalen House, Jamal Mashburn Jr., and Donovan Dent has really emerged this year. Now, on the flip side of that, they could be a team that loses in the first round by 20, right? I mean, they're hot and cold, but they certainly have that star power. They have a big inside a freshman, JT Toppin. He's a machine. He's probably going to be freshman of the year in the conference. He's one of the top freshmen in the entire country. They have, some other nice pieces. Amzil, the Dayton transfer, has really come on in the last few weeks. So obviously, it's all dependent on matchups. But I think they have a high ceiling. They could get it. Isaiah Stevens and Colorado State will not be an easy out. Now, they and San Diego State have struggled on the road in conference play, but like in NCAA tournament play, you're not playing road games, you're playing neutral games. So that evens it out for everybody. I think it'll be more difficult for San Diego State to replicate what they did last year. Some of their role players are not in good form right now. So I would think maybe New Mexico and then Colorado State and Utah State in that next level if we're looking for a second weekend team.
I know we're both all in on the Mountain West. You, of course, me, I've gotten there this year. There's some people out there that are still hating, saying this is a mid-major conference or overrated. To them, what would you say to make them believe that, no, the Mountain West is a top 5-4 conference this year?
Well, because of all the buzz that the conference has gotten, it's kind of one of those things that we do in society, right? Everybody goes one way and it's like the popular thing now. Well, then some people have to give it pushback. And you're seeing that from ACC fans or fans of other conferences that feel like they're getting bids stolen by the Mountain West. Well, the truth of the matter is, as we kind of talked about earlier, and again, I'll knock on wood, but those 6 teams at the top, they've avoided bad losses. They avoided it in the non-con and they avoided it in the conference play. And now look, I'm not going to kid ourselves here and say that all of those top 6 teams scheduled really, really tough. San Diego State and Boise State did. Colorado State kind of did too. Utah State, New Mexico, and Nevada, they did not. But they won those games. Like, you still have to win the games. It's not easy to win 12 out of your 13 non-conference games. You have to win the games. And it's not like they were loading up on quad 4s either. Nevada had a couple quad 4s in there, but for the most part, you're talking quad 2s and quad 3s. And a lot of these other bubble teams, even if it's just one, they suffered a quad 3 loss somewhere. And the Mountain West teams did not do that. And I think, to be fair, I think a lot of the fans of these, they're not, look, they're where we are on the East Coast. They're not watching the Mountain West games that come on at 10 o'clock. New Mexico, Colorado State's coming on in 10 minutes. The ACC fans, 9 out of 10, they're not watching these games that come on at 10 o'clock that you and I are staying up till midnight to watch because it's a good product. We see the good talent on the floor. The coaches are incredible. There's talent on the roster. They're older teams, older wins now, right? It's a veterans game now. It's an older players game. It's not a freshman game anymore. The Mountain West has that. And that's why they've done well this year. And that's why they're in line to earn 5 and hopefully 6 bids.
Yeah, I mean, I'm seeing it now. The Mountain West is the Big East version of the West Coast, at least in my mind. It is basketball. It is all basketball. I know they're football schools, but it is basketball this season at least. And it's a little bit underrated because they might not be the big wig teams that the Big 12 or the SEC has, but these teams win basketball games. Isaiah Stevens, I don't know off the top of my head, but I know that him and Severe Wheeler were like top 2 as far as active assist leaders in the country. I mean, like, this is a must-watch player. The Mountain West is filled with them. I'll leave you with this. If we get to the NCAA tournament, who's that must-watch player? Like that guy that if you're not watching basketball till March, and I hate these people, so I hate that I'm even asking you this, start watching basketball earlier, guys. But which player is going to take over March? Is it going to be one of those guys on New Mexico? Is it going to be Jamal Mashburn Jr., or is it someone else?
Well, the easy answer, probably the front runner for Player of the Year in the conference right now, is Jaden Ledee for San Diego State. He's been an absolute machine. He's been really, really good. But I'm gonna go with somebody else we haven't mentioned yet, Great Osobor from Utah State. He kind of took Ledee on head to head last night in that matchup 1-on-1, and they both were monsters. They both had really good games. Osobor's just a load, and he transferred down from Montana State. He came down with Coach Sprinkle. He has just lit it up. He's going to be a first-team all-conference guy. He had, I think, 17, 7, and 7 last night against a good defensive San Diego State team. He's a physical specimen. He reminds me a lot on the court of Zion Williamson. Not quite as explosive with his dunks, but he's got the build and size to him and a powerful game. I think people should get to know him. He's going to be like a legit like All-American candidate next year. But this year, I think he's going to be somebody that people are going to be like, whoa, this dude can play. And there's a lot of them in the conference, but you asked me for one, so I'll go with Osabor.
I was going to throw out there Max Rice. I love the Zion Williamson comparison
Mm-hmm.
too. As long as he's staying off the fast food, is
Well,
awesome.
that's why I said on the court. I didn't want to lump them in together completely. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's awesome though. Hey, so many great players. We could go on and on, but I know that this is a big game coming up. Tom, I appreciate you coming on this podcast. Hope to talk to you soon, and I hope that the Mountain West does prove us right in March.
I hope so too. Matt, thanks so much for having me on. Let's go enjoy this Lobos Rams game and go Mount West.
All right, and for everyone listening, as always, thank you, and let us know who you want to hear next. We'll talk to you next time.